Good afternoon. This is the meeting of the Lowestoft Town Council Climate and Ecological Emergency
You're gonna have to
Committee.
speak up, Deborah. You can't whisper.
I'm on me. We'll start with the fire evacuation procedure for Hamilton House.
Oh, hang on. We've got someone outside.
Sorry, we're just waiting for someone to come in. Okay. Welcome to the meeting. There are no fire alarm tests planned for today, and so should the fire alarm sound, it will be for real. In the event of a fire, please follow the instructions that will be given and congregate on the grass verge to the side of the Quick Fit building. The fire exits are the main stairwell to the reception area and a separate flight of stairs in the kitchen. Reporting at meetings. In the interests of openness and transparency, councillors and members of the public are reminded that the law permits any person to film, record, photograph or use social media in order to report on the proceedings of a meeting of the council or its committees when they're open to the public. The Town Council will record this meeting. Filming and photography will only be permitted from the area designated. No flash photography or additional lighting should be used without prior consent. Anyone wishing to report on the meetings should notify the clerk or chair so that they can be afforded reasonable facilities. People under the age of 18 or other members of the public not wishing to be filmed or photographed should notify the clerk or chair and should sit in the area designated for this purpose. Improper conduct or any disruptive behaviour could result in expulsion from the meeting. Can you also ensure that your mobile phones are changed to silent or switched off and adhere to the non-smoking policy for this building and the grounds of Hamilton House? We'll just go through who is here this afternoon. Myself, Councillor Deborah Ray, Councillor Wendy Brooks, non-councillor members Cathy Williams, John Sillett and Rachel Bunn. Welcome. Oh, done that. To receive and consider approval of apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair. Apologies were received from Councillors Craig, Page and Parker with reasons provided.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Oh, sorry.
Just to note for the voting, Chair, we have 3 non-councillor members in attendance, so one of them will need to rescind their voting for this meeting.
Right. Do we have to decide who?
Yes.
Okay. So only 2 of you can vote. Okay. So second the
Yeah.
And a vote, please. Thank you. And that's the case with everything we vote on, Taylor. Yes. Yep. To receive, we've got that. Declarations of interest and dispensations. To receive declarations of disclosable pecuniary, other registrable and non-registrable interests from members on items on the agenda. Any? John?
Yeah. Yes. Item 105. I'm a member of the East Suffolk Travel Association.
Okay. Anyone else?
No.
No. Right. Item 96.2, to consider written requests for dispensations for disclosable pecuniary interests and note dispensations granted.
We've received none, Chair.
Okay. 97, to consider the draft minutes of the meeting on 18th November 2024.
Propose we approve.
Okay, and I'll second because although I wasn't there, I have read them and seen the video. Vote. Okay. Public forum. An opportunity for the public to make comments on any matters on this agenda and to consider any advance comments from the public. And just to say, there is 1 member of the public in attendance. Would you like to speak? Would you like to speak, Noah?
All I would say at this stage is, as chairman of the East Suffolk Travel Association, we obviously welcomed the initiative of the council back in September to do a bus survey in Lowestoft. We have not seen the results of it, but we understand that it's going to be referred to in item 105 later on this afternoon. So perhaps at this stage, I won't say anything else. I'll hear what the discussion is, and I might possibly want to ask a question at that stage.
Okay. Are we fine with that? Yes.
Technically, members of the public can only speak during public forum.
So,
Well, can I suggest that we bring item 105 forward
yes.
so that Trevor doesn't have to? Unless you want to.
No, I'm quite happy to.
You're happy? He's happy?
Well, at 7 o'clock tonight, I've got to take part in a Zoom call, but I'm sure you would have done by then.
Right.
That's quite all right.
Okay, but strictly members of the public can only speak during the public forum. So if we brought that forward, would Trevor be able to speak to that?
Yeah,
Well,
we've
if they have to
certainly
go
done
into
that previously.
confidential.
Previously, we've had, if members of the public wish to speak on a certain item, it's under the chair's discretion to bring that item forward and discuss it under public forum.
Okay, well, let's do that then. So we're going to bring item 105 forward to consider public transport and alternative methods of travel and relevant actions. Item 105.1, to receive an update on the submission to Suffolk County Council about bus improvements. Wendy?
Well, as I think most people know, we submitted the document after the consultation. We had a very brief response from Suffolk County Council, basically saying, thank you very much. We'll pass it on if anybody needs to respond to you. The results of the survey, John might be better because I can't find it at the moment. But the top priority seemed to be, Trevor, the frequency of buses and the distance between bus stops. So those were the things that people, I think, were most concerned about. So rather than they weren't actually highlighting new routes as such, but just the regularity and the distance between the bus stops. I mean, I know where I live, which is just off the Yarmouth Road. The distance between St. Peter Street, which is where one is, and the next one is miles for people. Anyway, we submitted that with all our findings, and I can't remember off the top of my head how many people participated. It was over 500, wasn't it? So we await and see. I'm sorry I can't be more detailed, but I think, hang on. And then now we have to decide how much do we want to put a public post out about the consultation. Our consultants advised us don't raise expectations. Like we can say we've done the consultation and these were the results, but without saying anything that might imply that means we're going to get anything. I think that's sorry.
Okay,
And we're advised that we wait for a better reply from Suffolk County Council rather than your survey has been passed on.
okay. John, would you like to speak?
Yes, I mean, the bus survey was on the agenda for the last meeting. It didn't really get the time and attention I thought it deserved because I wasn't at that meeting, but saw it on YouTube, and I thought everything around it raised awareness. It got discussion going. There was 560 responses, 500 online, and about the rest paper. I thought that it was useful. I think I was disappointed that we missed putting a bid in by the deadline date. I was disappointed at that. I thought we could have done a bit more. But nevertheless, where we were, well, we are where we are. What the survey threw up was the Gunton area, but specifically the Painters Estate, was the area where people wanted a service. But there was also Alton Broad, has had good response. People wanted to visit the North Quay Retail Park. Kessingland got some responses, and the services 102, 106, 105 all mentioned as to needed to extend the times when the buses run. I believe they're the ones that don't run all day. And Corton as well. So it threw up, the survey threw up some interesting stuff. I think the survey should be released. I mean, the survey here can go to, I think it should go to East Suffolk Travel Association or whoever, press. I don't think we should worry too much about the expectation business. I mean, we've written a letter, we've expressed the desire to get a service reinstated to Gunton. I think that's really good. But the money, everyone knows that the money, is limited. But we can give weight to that, and we can only hope that will be raised when the county council looks at the bids and the evidence for the bids. But there's other things as well that need to be done. So
Okay. Wendy?
thank you.
Well, I'm a bit surprised by what John just said, because the whole purpose of us doing the survey was so that we could be part of this bid. And I hadn't picked up that we'd missed the deadline for the bid, because we were very conscious that we had to get it in for November. So I don't think I picked that even up from, I mean, maybe I've just missed it, but John, could you just enlighten me? Because the whole purpose of it was to do the survey and then to have some kind of bid that we could get in November. So what went wrong?
So just on that point, because I know Andy wants to talk, on that point, yeah, well, the time the public transport sub-working group came to look at the results of the survey, there was no council meeting available to action anything we came up with. No, there wasn't. And that was no, and so therefore, that's what the consultant suggested was that we back a bid from the past, which was from Pakefield to North Lowestoft, because it was an all-day service and it linked the north and south of the town, which I thought was a good one. But nevertheless, we put in a letter based on the local transport plan survey, which was a separate thing sent out by Suffolk County Council. We've attached the results of our survey to that, plus the letter supporting the Gunton idea, and that's where we are. But we missed the bid, and there was no meeting that could authorise anything.
Can I just clarify? That's not true. There was a meeting, and it did go to that meeting. It also could have gone to full council because we were in time. No, it could have done, but it didn't.
You're missing. There's
That's a
two things.
mistake.
No, there's two things. The bid date was the 15th of November. The consultation date for the local transport survey was the 25th of September. So the bid date was the earlier one, and we missed it. But we did get in time for the local transport. Yeah.
Okay, Andy.
Right, so with regards to whether there was a council meeting or not that could have authorised a response, if that was the case, then we all need to look at ourselves and hold our hands up there, because quite frankly, the bid date was known and a meeting should have been scheduled. Everything should have been geared to making a meeting inside that timetable, or an extraordinary meeting should have been scheduled. Because we were under the impression like what our deadline was, because that defined the consultation period that we went out for. So, but when I came to the last meeting, I did not know that the bid date had been missed, because we had been expressly advised that actually we were not submitting a scheme on a page because the scheme was oversubscribed, and therefore that we should support one of those ones that were in the reserve. And that's what our briefing.
That That is correct.
Yeah.
So when we had the working group meeting after the survey was finished, which would have led to submitting the scheme on a page, the working group were informed we could do that, but the likelihood was that wouldn't be seen to because there was a reserve list of projects on a previous round of funding. The consultant said, would we be more preferable to go for supporting something more likely to get funded than put in a new one, which was agreed. And then it came to this committee who also agreed that.
Right.
Okay,
So
thanks, Taylor.
can I finish? So basically, that was the premise on which we had that discussion in the last meeting, on the basis that because there was no point in submitting a scheme on a page because the scheme was oversubscribed, and therefore it would be more beneficial and productive to support a scheme that was already on the reserve list that would have relevance and benefit to the people of the parish.
Yeah, okay.
That was my understanding at the time, which Taylor seems to have confirmed. So I was not aware that we had missed the date as such, and therefore this was a fallback option.
Okay. Wendy?
Well, I mean, I'm in the same place as Andy. Is that first of all, I thought we had November to put in a bid. I didn't know that it was the 15th of November. I did try to get it on full council and was told there wasn't time. There was time. It could have gone on full council. I think it went to Aid, who did sort of support us. I never knew. I really didn't know that our option was, we put it a bid and that we've missed and we decided not to put in a bid. Why bother to do all that? Why bother to do a survey if we're not actually going to put in the bid? So I'm not best pleased because I don't think we've been fully informed. We did need the approval of council.
Well,
We did get the approval of I think it was the Assets Committee. There was time for it to go on to full council because it was that week, but it didn't because we were told we were out of time to get it on the agenda, but we weren't. It just seems, it's deeply, deeply frustrating.
Andy?
Well, I think before we rush to judgment in a public meeting, we should probably fact check and get some clarification. Because, as I said, the information and the briefing at the last meeting was that we made a conscious choice to support a scheme in the reserve list because there would be little point in submitting a scheme on a page document, even though that had been our original and long-term intention, because the funding was the pot of funding available was likely to be oversubscribed. So the advice to us was to support a scheme that was already on the reserve list, and we did that as a conscious choice, not because we had no other choice. If that's not the case, then let's get some clarification and bring it back, because there's no point any of us getting disappointed and frustrated or asking why this was allowed to happen before we actually check that is actually what happened.
So it does sound as though we did what we were advised to do.
Yes, well, as far as I'm concerned, we did, because I read the briefing paper ahead of the last meeting, and the recommendation was quite clearly to support a scheme that was already on the reserve list, because for a new bid, it was unlikely to get attention because the whole scheme was likely to be oversubscribed.
Okay. John?
But leaving that aside for a minute, the portal on the Suffolk County Council's site says that they welcome further bids even after the deadline. So we can still, we've written specifically supporting a particular service which the residents said they wanted, which is good, and we can still put a bid in, which will reinforce perhaps other schemes in the pipeline, and it's all evidence-based, which is what the county council are looking for. So it's we can check on dates about what we missed, but it's still there. It's still open.
So it can still be done.
Yeah.
Trevor, would you like to contribute?
Yes, could I? This is almost.
Trevor, can you use the microphone?
Come and
Oh, all right. Yeah. Okay.
Just sit at one of those.
So, all right. If I use the mic here, is it already on?
No, just press the button.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, right. Well, on the 13th of November, I actually attended or took part in a Zoom call of what is usually referred to as the pigs, the passenger information group of Suffolk County Council. I was actually in there deputising for another ESTA member who normally takes part. Now, that was organised by Simon Barnett, who is the person who I think you would have had to send the bid to. Now, he did say at that stage, and this was only really 2 working days before the deadline, that they had indeed received more bids than they could probably fund. So after the 16th of November, they would be looking carefully at all of the bids, and if some of them were unsuccessful, they would still be held in reserve for a future, what should we say, a future financial year when the county council might very well have more money from the bus enhancement scheme or whatever they decide to call it. Obviously, things are a bit fluid in the whole sort of setup of district and county councils at the moment, aren't they? But that certainly suggests to me that any bid or representation which Lowestoft Town Council puts into Suffolk County Council will not be wasted. It will at the very least be held there for a future occasion. So certainly it's not been a waste of effort for you to do your survey and produce a report and so on. Now, the last point I would just make, Wendy made the point about the distances between bus stops, which is quite an interesting one. There may indeed be such cases. I have to say, when we, as a public transport users organisation, have sent questionnaires out to our members and done surveys and so on, distances between stops has hardly ever been raised. What they've tended to raise instead is lack of timetables at bus stops, in some cases lack of seating or shelters, rather than the actual number of bus stops or the frequencies of them. But maybe, again, you may have identified certain locations in the town where an additional bus stop would be helpful, for everybody. So, as I say, all is not lost as far as the work that you've done is concerned, and hopefully you can enter into dialogue with the officers of Suffolk County Council to build on that further. And we obviously would be interested in keeping in contact with you over that, and hopefully, something can be rescued of it. So all is not lost.
Good. Thanks for that information, Trevor. Andy.
Well, I apologise for being late. I live on the Painters Estate and I got stuck in traffic. I won't say anything about the availability of buses, but I came in, somebody mentioned if the survey results are published. Quite frankly, they should be published. If we go out and do a public survey, then the people who we surveyed deserve to see the collation of the results. So if there's any doubt on that, I would like to propose that it is published.
Just to confirm, I think it was either last meeting or the meeting before, we've already resolved to publish it.
Okay.
I was just working with our consultant to put it in a good public facing
Presentable format. Yeah. Okay.
That's
That's fine. And all I would really want to say, I've just seen there's a next item and it leads into that. If an expression has been that we can still submit a bid, then the bid that we were going to submit, I think, should be submitted because a need and a desire was identified. We probably knew ourselves beforehand that that would be a target area, but if that was borne out in the survey, then absolutely put one in. If it's just not going to be junked as late, it's still relevant, put it in. Agreed. The other comment I was going to make really ties in with the next item, the future of the public transport working group. I think absolutely it has a future, as a group, and should continue, because the exercise that we've just completed was in relation to a bid around improving bus connectivity within a town or within an area. I think one area that badly needs attention in Lowestoft is connectivity between Lowestoft and other places. And so I think it would be very useful and very productive for a public transport working group to take that on as part of its consideration and speak to stakeholders. Obviously, we don't want to be duplicating what Esther is doing, so I would hope that the public transport working group would be engaging and speaking with Esther. But I would certainly like to see some attention from relevant stakeholders to that aspect of public transport, the connectivity between Lowestoft and other places, not just within the town.
Okay. Wendy?
Just roll back a bit to Trevor's observation about the distance between bus stops. That might have become an issue because of cancellations of routes. So that whereas more of the town might have been covered by other routes, those routes have now gone, which means that people have to go a long way sometimes to a bus stop. Besides it just being, it's not, maybe we're not talking about the same routes. I agree with Andy, we definitely need to publish this, the results of our survey. And it's very much a learning curve in terms of making sure that we absolutely know deadlines and things, because I did not know the 15th of November. I thought it was the whole of November. It might be that Esther knew that and maybe other people knew that, but somehow that didn't come. So it's about talking to each other and communication. Yeah, I mean, Andy's made a proposal about, but it's going to happen anyway, so we don't really need
Yes,
to.
so the
That's all.
results of the survey are being published anyway.
Yeah.
That decision has been made.
Yeah.
But we need a proposal to put forward the bid. So.
Well,
that
I
needs to be
just
done.
wanted to say on that, I think we do need to put the bid. I mean, publishing the results of the survey keeps us in somebody's eye, hopefully. But one thing that did disappoint me about the results from the survey was the lack of young people's responses. So before, maybe if we think about and putting in a bid again, that we particularly address the college and say, can you get your young people? Because we know it's an issue there, so that we could attach it to our original findings, if that's feasible.
What I would suggest is you also go to year 11 in your
Yeah.
schools. Because if they don't come to college, one of the reasons they don't come to college is because they can't get there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Andy?
So declaring that I live on the Painters Estate, which had a bus service withdrawn, and I'm also chair of the Gunton Residents Association, which has a general interest in the improvement of the ward, but I have no conflict. I would propose the submission of a bid based on the contents of that survey. If that was one of the most top findings, that they want the bus replaced or a replacement bus service on the Painters Estate, fine. If other things came top, then the bid should focus on those. So to be informed by the results of the survey, such as they were, that a bid should be submitted.
Okay. So that's your proposal. So second and a vote, please. I think everyone can vote now.
But so can I also suggest that as a follow-up, we do a survey of young people, particularly aimed at young people in town, taking up Rachel's point of view and, for you point of view, year 11 and the colleges.
John?
Just to say that I think the reason we didn't get such a good response in that age group was because the publicity for the bus survey was press orientated and social media orientated, and I think the demographics of those mediums are like the sort of over a certain age. It's a common problem with any getting information out is the medium which different audiences listen to.
Yeah. Andy?
Could I suggest that because the previous survey was so constrained by the timescale and deadline of the county council consultation, could I suggest that now we have a public transport working group and we have Esther, that we ask the public transport working group in consultation with Esther as required, to frame the content of that survey and bring it back, like the questions, what they want to ask. Have a conflab about what they actually want to ask, what information they want to try and elicit out of this survey, and like perhaps draft some questions, and then bring it back, because it's a different animal to the last survey, because our last survey was geared to another authority's consultation. This isn't. This is primarily for our information, and may inform what we do off the back of it. So there will be fewer constraints in terms of time and format around that. So I think as we have that working group and we set it up for a purpose, perhaps they should give some thought to actually how the survey should be worded and the media that it should go out on.
Okay, so you're suggesting we do another survey, an independent of the one that's already been produced?
Wendy said, can we do another survey aimed at young people? So I was like saying, I would support that, and if you do that, but I would suggest that the working group comes up with the format and the questions in consultation with the college and Esther and any other stakeholders, because unlike the last survey, we're not dancing to another authority's tune instead of like in terms of working to their timescales and submission deadlines and so on like that. So the working group and the college and Esther can give it the attention and consideration that they feel it needs.
Yeah, Rachel, do you want
Yeah, so fully endorse that, Andy. It's, if I can have the questions, we can put it out on the student portal. So it automatically goes to all the students at Lowestoft sixth form and the college. What would be really good is if we could have those questions. We've got open evening events in February. So people that are brought by their parents, we can ask the same questions, because there is definitely a block of people coming into Lowestoft because they can't get in.
Okay.
So there's definitely a local issue, but there's a bigger issue.
Yeah.
If we want people to come into the town, whether it's for work or study, they're choosing not to because they can't get in.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, fully endorse.
So before February, please.
So you making a proposal?
Make that as a formal proposal.
Yep. And seconder? Rachel? And a vote, please. Thank you. Right, so we're on to 105.2, which Andy's already touched on. Oh, sorry, Kathy.
I just have a quick question. Rachel, when you said that people coming into town, is that relating to sort of Andy's point about connectivity with other towns? Yeah, I thought it was, and I assumed, but I wanted to clarify.
John Lehman.
Mhm.
It's easier for them to go to Norwich than it is come to Lowestoft. And sometimes that's changing what courses they do,
Yeah,
because the biggest thing is, how can I get there?
yeah. Okay, that's major.
It's really, really major. So it's not just about education, it's about jobs as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So, we're doing a lot around unemployability and job access. If they can't get there and it's not accessible and it's not easy,
They won't come.
they won't come.
Okay. Right, moving on then, yeah. 105.2, the future of public transport, the future of the public transport working group. So Andy has already said that he thinks it's a good idea for the group to continue. Would anyone else like to comment? Wendy?
I think just on the conversation we've had today, it's quite clear that yes, it should. It's a lot of work to be done.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
it's a major issue for the town in terms of, climate and net zero, health, well-being. It's probably one of the biggest issues. The lack of good public transport is just so important. If this town is going to stand a chance, then its transport has to be addressed as a matter of great urgency.
Yeah, John?
Yeah, just to say, really just to put on record again, I suppose, that transport is the biggest emission of the biggest amount of CO2 emissions at the moment, because energy has gone down the rankings to second, and a single person in a car uses 5 times or produces 5 times as much CO2 as a person on bus. So there's a big climate thing in
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah. Andy.
Yeah, so well, I mean, I agree with Wendy. I mean, there's so much that the the public transport working group could take an initial look at and work up to a point that when decisions need to be made on like progressing it or like communications with other authorities and so on, it can come here. But like a structured committee meeting where there's other stuff on the agenda is not a format in which to have a 45-minute or an hour conversation about one transport issue, particularly if you're wanting to engage with the likes of Esther and the college. Because having a working group means you can arrange meetings at a mutually convenient time, whereas like a standing committee's times are like fixed in the calendar unless you arrange an extraordinary one. So I think there's more scope for flexibility to meet on everybody's terms, and have a proper, thorough, comprehensive conversation to work things up. And then out of that, proposals can be brought back here at an advanced stage where they can then be looked at as required. And also, I think with that working group, you have the option to kind of set the narrative rather than responding to somebody else's, and identify things rather than just respond to them. So I think there's a massive vacuum for a group like this to speak to other stakeholders who are trying to do similar, and try and get discussions and proposals moving.
So do we need to vote on the proposal to continue?
I will propose that it now remains as a permanent working group, rather than just a temporary working group that's been set up for the purpose of responding to one survey. That it is now a permanent working group, but obviously its members should decide on terms of reference, meeting frequency, that kind of thing. And they have a considerable freedom to do so as a working group. But I think the need is undeniably there and will continue for the foreseeable future.
Wendy?
Well, it wasn't actually set up for the survey. It was set up as a public. It was actually had a bigger remit when it was set up, wasn't it?
The survey was virtually the first meeting job it got.
Yes, but we've been focusing on the survey, but we were always wanting to talk about trains and bus station and all the rest of it. So yes,
So you're second the proposal?
definitely. Yeah.
Okay. And a vote? Okay, thanks. Right, so now we're going to revert back to the original agenda, which was consider the draft minutes. Have we done 97?
Yeah, we've done the minutes.
99.1. Okay, 99.1. To monitor expenditure by this committee from the climate emergency budget under delegated authority.
So just on that one, Chair, there's just two items since the previous meeting, which is fuel and waste collection, which are the two standard items we have on that budget.
Okay. 99.2, to approve a request from the Finance and Governments Committee for the funding of a £1,360 grant to be allocated from the Climate and Ecological Emergency Budget. Andy?
So there was a grant application from All, which has been approved, but because it is aimed at I've gone blank. Help me out, Tone.
Recycling?
The recycling initiative, not Tetra Packs.
Blister packs, yeah.
Blister packs.
Yeah.
So there was quite a detailed proposal there. So basically, it's for the purchase of boxes and equipment pursuant to that. But there was obviously a previously established operation, and the contents are in place. So the initial proposal was, because it is a recycling initiative and the funds were available, was to ask Climate whether it would be happy for this grant to be directly funded from the Climate and Ecological Emergency Budget, which, if I remember rightly, in the Climate tab is the code that there's various number codes. It's the one numbered 3. So it's the main budget that's not allocated to anything specific. So the bulky waste has its own code. This is an unspecified code for like any expenditure from this committee. And there were funds available in that. So that was the first choice. But to ask this committee whether it would be willing to allow that grant to be funded from here as it is for recycling of blister packs and is therefore supports the aims of this committee. If not, there was a fallback option that was agreed by F&G for if this committee didn't want it to be funded from its budget, there was a fallback committee for Plan B funding, basically out of two other budgets. But that was the request. So I'd just like to propose that we endorse that request and agree to fund it from this committee's budget.
Okay. Wendy?
I find this problematic because you can recycle blister packs in numerous chemists in the town centre. I'm not sure that we need another blister pack collection, but Finance and Governance decided that we did. I'm just raising it as I'm not convinced, but
Okay.
I don't object to this small amount of money coming out of climate emergency, but I think we need to keep a very close eye on its effectiveness. If actually people are using it, what happens to the things? It's not a huge amount of money, but it is a lot of money for one small organisation. I'd like us to ensure that we get feedback on its usage and what's happening.
Okay.
Because I could be being just a bit overly skeptical, and it might be hugely successful.
Okay. Andy?
Sorry, I've just.
Well, can I just say something while we're waiting for you? I've tried to recycle blister packs at chemists in the town, and there was one particular chemist, which, as far as I know, was the only one that was doing it, and they stopped because they were oversubscribed and they just couldn't deal with the numbers of blister packs they were receiving. So I'm not sure what this scheme is that Use It All are going to use, but I mean, if they can do it and it's done properly, then it's worthwhile, I believe. Andy?
So the relevant part, bear in mind this is from Use It All, which, you know, was already involved in recycling these earlier, and the main reason it stopped was largely premises, you know, because it used to have one of the empty retail units in the high street. And so for 2 or more years, Use It All operated a regular recycling collection service in the high street. Though its main focus was information, it became apparent that vast quantities of Tetra packs and medicine blister packs were going to the black bin. Both are hard to recycle. MEC / Use It All wishes to link up with pharmacies, GPs and local community businesses to pilot a scheme for diverting blister packs from landfill incinerator to recycling. 2 possible pharmacies are the main Boots in London Road North and Hayden's. Boots because they are a national company which should be taking a lead in this, and Hayden's because they are a local company with 6 outlets in the area. As a starter publicly, and to save filling up a couple of black wheelie bins with somewhere around 55,000 blister packs already collected, 7 110-litre boxes would go to Refactory in Hull. Then collecting boxes would be placed in a range of outlets, namely the Mayfly Cafe, Uncle Sid's, Trinity Methodist Church, all in Lowestoft High Street, and the Over 60s Club, which is now the Olive Centre in Clapham Road, who already collect regularly and would have a box. These boxes would be fully funded by the scheme for at least 1 fill. The scheme is a pilot, and the data collected, amount collected, and over what period would help refining any future scheme. Both Tetracycle and Refactory's business models work in the same way. The collectors have a box designed for the purpose from the recycler. This is delivered to the collector. The box is filled. It is then sent back to the recycler with free postage. So the breakdown of the £1,360 is 910-litre fill and return boxes at 108 box, which is £972. That's the bulk of it. 4 times 60-litre fill and return boxes at 72 quid a pop. That's £288. And paper printing and ink for publicity at £100. That's how the 1,360 is broken down. So it is clear in the proposal that there is, I mean, even though we reserve the option with any grant within 6 months to ask for evidence of how it's been spent and how effective the project has been, there is an explicit data collection aim built into delivery of this pilot project.
Okay, so you're proposing that the
Comes out of climate
comes
budget.
out the plan.
So the decision to approve the grant has already been made. So this is really just a budget allocation question.
Right.
Are we happy to fund it from the climate and emergency budget? And that was a request from F&G that we do so. But if we don't, there is a fallback decision that it will be funded, I think 50-50 if memory serves, from grants and community engagement. So my proposal is that we endorse the request and do fund it from the climate and ecological emergency budget.
Yeah, and I'll second that. So can we vote on that, please? Yeah, everyone. Okay. 100, to consider the following matter to raise with appropriate East Suffolk Council Cabinet member. 100.1, the new legislation around bins in the district. Some aspects may be confidential. Wendy.
Well, I've read the notes from the quarterly liaison that tell me no more than the publicity that was given out. I have various problems with this. One is that a 3-week general waste collection is just too much for many households. They really will not be able to cope with having a bin or general waste collection every 3 weeks. It'll also be confusing about which week is it? Is it blue? Is it whatever? Sorting the different plastics out will also be incredibly confusing for people. Some people are already struggling with the blue bin, let alone, another bin with a different sort of plastic recycling. So people will be on a kind of, my understanding was that I just think it's too confusing, and people in Lowestoft, too many people have, their gardens are too small, they live in a flat, they have no access to any of this. I think this is geared towards somewhere where people have very large gardens and, basically have a lot more money than the people of Lowestoft. I don't think it will do anything to improve recycling. It's interesting that the legislation they're quoting, or the demand from government they're quoting, insists that they collect food and glass. 2 items which I would really, really welcome, and I think most people would welcome. A weekly food collection and glass collection, yes, great. But but we're not getting that. We're not even getting the electrical collection because it's being piloted in Felixstowe. So all that it seems to be is, I just think it's not thought through, and that they should push the food and glass recycling to the top of the agenda, keep the blue bin, keep the black bin, keep it on a fortnightly rotation so that people don't get confused and messed up. And it really annoys me. I have to put food in my general waste, but I do, because I don't have a garden big enough for a compost, and whenever I try to compost, it's a mess. So I just think they've got their priorities wrong. Why is it that the recycling levels in Suffolk are so poor? What is it? What have they done wrong traditionally over the years? But it seems to me what they're proposing is going to do nothing to change those figures. That's just my feeling.
Andy.
Right, I was at the quarterly liaison meeting, but I have to apologise. I've not reread the notes ahead of this meeting. But I was fairly convinced that Caroline, who was at the meeting, said, first of all, that there would not be a 3-weekly interval between the black bins, and that this was a miscommunication. I may have misunderstood that, but I thought she said that in that meeting. Secondly, that they fully recognised the issue in the areas of town particularly those with older housing, that had small or no back gardens and did not have the room for these empty bins, and they intended to find a solution. So, with that in mind, could I suggest, because obviously there is an issue here between the legislation and the amount of discretion we have in this matter and how it is implemented within this district. So, would it be appropriate, do you think, to actually send an invitation to the cabinet member to ask either a relevant councillor or an officer from that area to come and speak to this committee about the proposals and potentially answer any questions?
I think that's a good idea.
Can I just,
And I'll make that proposal.
right, I just want, you're right, this is what was, Caroline Topping explained East Suffolk Council had been mandated by the government to have the collection of glass and food waste in Tetra Paks implemented by April 2026, with one extra bin and food caddy introduced, and to have the collection of soft plastic packaging arranged by the following year. So they're basically bringing that one forward. East Suffolk Council has considered the implementation of a twin stream where residents sort the waste into different bins, or to have waste commingled, everything in one bin. ESC decided on the former option, which means we get the 3 bins, as it was proven to increase recycling rates while the latter would cause contamination. That's highly questionable. That's really all it says. Reducing the, Cabinet also discussed reducing the black bin collection. It doesn't really say.
So I'll make that proposal because I think get the information.
There's so many, I mean, what's being said in the press, what's being said publicly by East Suffolk's media people seems to be very different, or slightly different.
So I will make that proposal because we have central government with the legislation, we have the statutory collection authority, which is district, but the statutory disposal authority is county. So whatever solution comes up will inevitably be constrained by the capability of the county facilities to actually handle that waste. So you've got all these 3 things in a perfect storm if they go wrong. Yeah. So I would suggest that we go back to East Suffolk and ask for either an informed councillor or an officer with a relevant brief to come and speak to us about the proposals and answer and try to answer any questions that we may have, or take away any that they can't answer on the spot and get back to us afterwards.
Yeah, Wendy.
Well, that's all right, but just to highlight that actually the report back from the quarter liaison does say that they're hoping to the black bin should only be collected every 3 weeks. It's in there still. Yeah. Okay, so that's their ambition.
I've just made a proposal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll second the proposal. Your vote, please. Yeah. Taylor, can you and the officers sort that out? Thank you. Okay. 100.2 to receive the response from East Suffolk Council regarding Sizewell C in relation to water shortage and coastal erosion, and consider a response from the town council. Wendy.
Well, this wasn't really a response from East Suffolk Council, was it? It was a response from Sizewell C. So,
yeah.
Well, they very deliberately punted it to Sizewell C, didn't they?
Yes. So they didn't answer any of the questions. I think we have to ask again.
Okay, Andy?
Well, here's a thought. Put the Kevlar and the helmets on. But we have been talking for a while, at least a couple of years, in fact, about trying to get a debate where someone from the pro camp and someone from the against camp would come and have a debate with us.
We have, yeah.
And for one reason or another, that's never happened. I believe we did have someone from academia lined up on the anti-view, and the issue seems to be that someone from the pro view wasn't prepared to take part in a debate. Churning out publicity, I'm talking about a debate. But why don't we thank Sizewell C for their information, or unless it was relayed via Suffolk County, and extend the invitation to them to come and answer these questions, and see whether they will or not.
Yes.
if East Suffolk are saying, well, we're punted to Sizewell C, why don't we ask Sizewell C and come to speak to us? It would show that actually we're being fair and open-minded. Please, we have these concerns. Would you come to us to speak to these questions and be on hand to answer any questions that members may have?
And would you also like the person from academia to come and give us the scientific viewpoint from his perspective?
If they are free for the same meeting, but if the position of Sizewell is that they don't want to come with anyone there who can contradict them, then perhaps invite the person from academia back to come and speak to us on their own. And so that even if they're not willing to be in the same room as each other at the same time and have an actual debate, by having them both come to us at separate meetings, we are giving both views of points, both views, a fair hearing and public airtime.
Yeah. Okay. Rachel.
I'm sure Sizewell would come along, but can we just avoid the word debate? Because that just pokes a fire that doesn't need poking.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't be a debate.
So
They were
So
separate.
it's how you communicate to Sizewell that you would like to find out more and have some assurance, rather than we're going to bring you into a room and have a debate.
So that's why my proposal is to ask them to come to speak to the specific questions that have been raised about how they are going to deal with water shortage and coastal erosion.
Yeah.
So those questions were in the email, so they've had advance sight of them. So no one's going to get ambushed. We can make sure the terms of reference are clear, that the meeting would be about those specific questions, and ask if they are willing to come and speak further to those questions and the information they provided, and answer any questions we may have.
Yeah. Wendy.
Yes, I think enough of us in this room know about nuclear power, Sizewell C. We can ask the question. It's a genuine invitation, because I'm very, very concerned about the water issue, as I'm sure other people are as well. And it's an invitation for them to come and try and explain to us and hopefully reassure us that they've got this in hand, right? So Lowestoft is being impacted by this development in quite a serious way. We've already lost holiday camp. There's other things going on as well, and yes, we need to have that discussion. Discussion.
But I think
Is that all right? Discussion.
I think it's a discussion, and you're asking for assurance.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah.
And I think if you're really clear on the points you would like discussed at the meeting, there's no curveballs, because it's about building relationships and having that. If you want questions in the future, you've built a relationship.
Yeah.
If you go in there like Guy Fawkes, you've lost it for the next 14 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think
it's about relationship building, but also that pushback for the town. These are our concerns.
Yeah.
I think my proposal was quite clear.
Yeah.
That if we forward that email, in the chain, so that the questions and concerns we raised with East Suffolk Council are there, the information that has come back to us via Sizewell C is there, and if we just say we would like you to speak to us on these questions further to the information you've provided, perhaps provide more information around what you've put in this email, and to take some questions for councillors on these points. So the terms of reference will be quite clear. There will be no curveballs on other aspects of the project. If people want to talk about that, will be for a separate meeting with separate prior notice. Quite happy to make that clear and precise in the proposal. I would be inclined to offer it as a committee, but I understand if they may not want to partake that in public session. So if they want a standalone meeting, or if they want to, like we do sometimes, if they want half an hour before a main meeting, before the public meeting starts, and potentially invite other councillors who may wish to partake, but on those very, very precise terms.
Okay. Did I second that? I did, didn't I? Yes. Okay. And we voted. Or we have voted. No. Never votes. Yep. Okay, everyone. Right. 101, to consider Lowestoft Town Council's draft climate action plan and relevant actions. 101.1, to receive an update on the climate emergency action plan. Now, I know we haven't had a meeting for a while. Wendy?
Well, I put it on here precisely for that reason, Deborah. I wondered what happened to it.
Yeah,
Because,
I was thinking the same.
you know,
Because
yes.
we were hoping to have it completed by December,
Yeah.
weren't we?
So I'm just I'd like an update as to where we are and where we're going.
I'm looking at dates to set up a new meeting. Unfortunately for this, I am the only person who can take the meetings because it's fallen to me. So it's all dependent on when I'm available. And these past 2 months,
Yeah, of
I've not
course.
been available. But I am looking at meeting dates for January, February, and March. And I
What-
want to get a meeting each month
Yeah.
in to try and like get us back on track with our regular meetings for it.
That would be good. Andy?
So, bearing in mind these meetings are not part of the open meeting, so therefore councillors could come in person, councillors could dial in. Would you have availability if councillors did that, depending on what stage we're at and how many meetings you think we have left? Would you have availability to have 2 meetings a month from the new year, or is that too much? Yeah.
Try to get 2 meetings in.
Okay. Yeah, Wendy?
Well, I put it on here because it's important. It's not like something that
No.
it's not an optional extra, is it? And we've done nothing on it now for several months. So I think as a matter of urgency, we fed in, didn't we? We fed in. I think we urgently need the kind of meeting that Andy's suggesting on Zoom, and we need it in January. We can't wait till March.
No, Taylor
You
was
really
suggesting
can't.
January.
But we need more than one meeting, don't we? That's what we're saying. So what I was saying, Taylor said she's been looking at availability between January and March.
Right.
Right? So, yeah. So potentially we might need 2 months. You know, if we had 2 meetings a month for 2 months, that might be enough, but we might need to go in March, depending how long the meetings are and how much we get done. But if we could get 2 meetings in January and see where we are at the end of that, and then try and work at that frequency until this is finished, because I agree it's dropped, but there have been, obviously, you know, we're in a public meeting, but there have been other things going on. You know, and people now and then are allowed annual leave and other people get ill. And, you know, it is what it is. We can't undo what's happened, but we do need to pick it up and see this through to completion.
Okay, Wendy?
Well, actually, we've done an awful lot of it. And that's the frustrating thing. It's not like we're starting from scratch.
No.
So it's kind of like we've got so far. Now let's just get the thing finished.
Yeah, agreed. What we've done is not wasted. I think the hardest meeting will be the first one, because it will just be getting that momentum going again. And once we got that going again, we should be there. But I mean, the last meetings we were at and we were working through it, you know, we were giving it the detailed attention it warrants, and we were making progress. And I think we just need to pick that up and see it through to completion.
Okay. So we'll try to schedule in 2 meetings a month? Yep. Okay, fine. So we don't need to vote on that, do we? Okay, 101.2, to receive an update on the carbon footprint of the town council. Now, I believe that we were going out to various people to update that, weren't we?
Made initial approaches, but I've not heard anything back yet. I expect with it being this side of the year, it does tend to wind down, but I'll be redoing my chases again to try and get through quotes so we can get the new report sorted.
Okay, fine. Okay. 102, to consider the natural environment with regards to Lowestoft's parks and open spaces and other ecology-related matters and relevant actions. 102.1, the wash tidal barrier and its effect on the coastline, and Graham isn't here.
No.
He was going to speak on it, so shall we defer that item until
We've
Graham's...
deferred it 3 times now.
Can I suggest that we defer it, but as he's requested it, could staff come back and said, look, if you're not at the next meeting, it will just be dropped?
Yeah, okay.
That will make it 4 meetings.
Well, no one else can talk on it, can they? So
I can.
There might be other people who can talk on it, but
would you like
but he wanted to speak
He
to
did
it,
want
didn't
to
he?
speak
That
to
was
it.
the reason as a courtesy for rolling it over.
Well, I mean, it might be a courtesy, but we are now in the fourth time this has appeared on the agenda. It's very much a kind of vague idea with no forward planning. Do we really have to keep having, if Graham wants it on the agenda and he can attend the meeting, he can send a paper in and we can put it back on the agenda.
So let's go back to him and say that.
Deferring it. Let's get it off the agenda. If Graham might have changed his mind.
All right, Wendy, but you like your freedom to put your items on agendas.
Well, I
Other
did,
people
but
should have the same.
the 7 days before.
Yes, understood. So, okay, do it that way then. It's off the agenda. Please put it back on the agenda for a meeting that you will be attending.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yep,
fine.
same
Okay.
outcome, but
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It will be interesting to hear what he has to say, so hopefully he'll put it back on. Right, 103, to consider issues relating to the energy and water supply of the built environment of Lowestoft and relevant actions. 103.1, to discuss the direct air capture facility. John?
Yes, I requested this on the agenda because it's become or has been a topic of discussion in the town. The facility now built is quite visible from around the town. People were wondering what on earth it was, and people are now talking about the fact that a tree has been invented and placed in the docks area. I thought there's been a little bit of publicity about it. I thought the town needed to just discuss more, really. Obviously, it's there to take CO2 out of the atmosphere. This is an experimental machine. There's some government money and Sizewell, Associated British Ports, various scientists, universities have constructed this as an experiment. What points I would like to make is are the fact that yes, something needs to be done about CO2. It's a major greenhouse gas. The climate temperatures are rising all the time, and the Paris Agreement nearly 10 years ago was to hold temperatures at 1.5% above pre-industrial levels. We're now nearly at 1.4. We may exceed, when the data is all in for this year, we may be up to the 1.5 now. If all pledges taken into account show that the temperature above pre-industrial levels will go to 2.7 based on current policies, and that was published last month by the Climate Action Tracker, which is a non-government independent think tank. So something needs to be done with the CO2 levels, and that CO2 is produced by burning stuff. And at the moment, vegetation and trees absorbs about half of what is produced, but the other half is just remorselessly continues, and the temperatures build up. Now, the other points I want to make are we have the technology and there are policies in place to cut those greenhouses down now, using the technology we have now, using the energy supplies that we have available in terms of solar and wind and tide. We don't need to burn fossil fuels as we do. We do need to improve the capacity of grids to cope with the wind may not be blowing in some places and the sun might not be showing in other. So that's a huge infrastructure issue. But it's all there. The capabilities are with us now. The previous government actually talked about 22 billion for carbon capture. This government has pledged and said they will spend the money, £22 billion on carbon capture. The technology has not been proven. It's unproven. We can't wait. We can't. But on the other hand, I'm suggesting that experiments are fine. But one of the big issues about carbon capture is, even if it could work, is where does the waste go? and the proposal is put it into the a bedrock in the North Sea, and I would suggest that that is a real hostage to the future. Is that one? So I'm open-minded about the experiment. But I don't think this application, we can't wait for it. We can't put off doing the things we should be doing, which is insulating houses and investment in public transport and all those sort of things. So I just thought we ought to have a discussion on it. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay. Andy first, then Rachel. Yeah.
So, certain concerns I have with this are broadly similar to John's, really, particularly the one he mentioned right at the end about what happens to it once you've captured it. I mean, the phrase greenwashing does come to mind because my whole understanding of the concept and science behind direct air capture was that it is meant to be used in conjunction with the introduction, implementation and expansion of renewable energy. It's not intended to be used on a standalone basis, and it certainly isn't meant to be used to continue with, to effectively count as an excuse to carry on with stuff that pours out carbon emissions because, hey, look, we're capturing it. So it's okay to carry on as before because we're doing this. That isn't the concept or science behind what direct air capture was proposed to achieve. So I think the context in which it is being proposed is very, very unsafe because it suggests that effectively it is being used to justify carbon emissions if we can capture them again, or if we can capture an equivalent amount, which is not the idea at all. The other thing, as I said, which John has said, is disposal, because I had not read that in conjunction with this trial, but in regard to the wider government support for direct air capture, I had certainly read that there were proposals to take the carbon that has been captured and, yes, basically store it on the seabed, which would be bad enough anyway. It's the same argument, different animal, but when you talk about nuclear being clean energy because of the carbon emissions, I don't regard it as clean energy because you've still got the disposal at the end of it, and you would have here. It's a different product, it's a different byproduct, and it's a different disposal, but you've still got something that is bad news that you then have to come up with a safe storage and disposal option for. And that would be a worry anyway, but in a shallow sea like the North Sea, there's all sorts of questions spin off that. So what I'd like to say is the experimental model at our port, I know Sizewell are involved, but is it being operated by ABP?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Sizewell.
So what I'd like to propose is that, I mean, the only person I can think to go to in the first instance, it might not be him, it might be his managers. So not asking somebody to come and speak to us on the government position, but with regard to this experimental one, whether we could contact, say, Tom Jewett, the operations manager at the port in the first instance, and ask whether he or another appropriate person at ABP would be willing to come and speak to us to give us more information about the direct air capture experimental facility in Lowestoft. What is the duration of the experimental stage? What will be the measures of success or otherwise? And if they could speak to us about the experiment, but also if they can give us more information at local level on the thorny issue of what is proposed to be done with the carbon that's captured.
And I'll second that proposal.
Okay.
We vote on it? Yeah, everyone. But Rachel, you wanted to speak.
Yes, so just a few points on that. Obviously, we want to moving away from fossil fuels. You know, we're at a tipping point already.
Yeah.
Simple as that. What we've got to realise is not just as a town, but as the nation. Today, we're at 27.4 reliance on fossil fuels going into our national grid. 49% renewables, 15% other, which is biomass and nuclear. We haven't got the infrastructure just to say, sorry, no coal, oil, gas, turn off tomorrow. So we haven't got the infrastructure, we haven't got the volume. You've only got to look at, if you've got offshore wind, the delays the government caused by consent for offshore wind. It's not just back 2 years.
Yeah.
So collectively, we need to be aware that there's definitely innovation and there's definitely technology constantly. You know, we're now looking at floating offshore wind, not just wind. Really good idea to get AB Ports involved because it's something new to Lowestoft that there's a lot of unknowns about, whether it's us in here or it's people who drive past it going to Aldi's or wherever. They're, what the hell is that? It looks like a spaceship's just been landed on the port.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's always a bit of us finding out more, but also how can we educate the community? So one of the biggest things I think we need to look at when we're looking at the climate action plan as a whole is actually what can we do to change behaviours as well.
Yeah.
So how people are using electric, you know, they're not thinking about it. It infuriates the hell out of me, the amount of Christmas lights at the moment.
Yes.
Yeah. Some things that people don't know.
Exactly.
So we need some quick wins. Retrofit has definitely got to be a focus for the town. So we've got people saying, actually, great, I want an air source heat pump. They haven't retrofit their house. They're going to spend probably a third more on electric keeping up with the house.
Yep.
So there's a whole thing we need to do. But totally agree with Andy, there needs to be something around knowledge, understanding that we can then communicate outwards.
Yes.
The other bit as well that I think we need to look at is the desalination plant that's underneath Gulliver, because that's not been mentioned either.
Ooh. Okay.
That's linked to hydrogen.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that.
So
Interesting.
funny. In terms of renewable energy, the East is in such a great position to show. I've lived in Lowestoft all my life and it's been doom and gloom. We had at the Orbis Centre 2 weeks ago, people from government talking about the industrial strategy. They left thinking actually the East has really got a big part to play, but we need to balance it at the same time. I'll shut up then.
Okay, I can't remember who was. Okay.
And
then with the.
Well, I'm glad Rachel's feeling excited about the future of Lowestoft. The thing is that the East of England was named the Energy Coast by Tony Blair decades ago. So this idea isn't new. The fact that it isn't new, it's kind of like what happens. To look at massive billions of pounds being spent on what is basically experimental technology. It might work, it might not. And then you say, well, we need to retrofit, which is another one of those kind of buzzwords, avoiding the term insulation. What we need to be doing in this country is not consuming more, but less energy. So how do we consume less energy? And one of the key things we could do with the billions being flung at, you know, experimental projects is home insulation. That should be a priority. I've read the thing from APB and Sizewell about this. It's like they're going to see if it works, aren't they? APB, see if it works. It isn't working at the moment. It's just, you know, if it's just an experiment tied to a university, that's one thing. But somehow or other, it's in the sea and it's tied. I just think the whole thing is why has there been so little publicity around this? Because it has been very quiet. It was 2023, this was agreed, but it's been very quiet. Because what is it they don't want us to know? I just think, I'm not paranoid, but it is interesting. This has been going on very, very quietly in the background. So that Sizewell C can be carbon neutral, apparently, despite digging up all the roads and chopping down all the trees and destroying wildlife habitats. It's going to be nuclear free. And then Rachel throws in a desalination port in Lowestoft as well. I was just like, my head is spinning. It's just spinning.
Andy.
Right. So that's exactly why I made the proposal I did, because we can all sit here and discuss what we've read online, and we're no more informed afterwards. And, you know, the purpose of this item is not for us to be a bunch of armchair experts and sit around sharing what our concerns are and doing nothing. So, you know, but I reiterate again, I take Rachel's point that, you know, you cannot go from reliance on fossil fuels to reliance on renewable overnight. There has to be it has to be a graduated process and a transitional process. But equally, the concept and science behind direct air capture was not to operate in isolation. It was to operate as part of a package of measures, including renewables. It was one component in that transition package. It was not a solution in of itself. And my concern, intentionally or unintentionally, is that there will be fears that this has been used for greenwashing around other local operations. But my biggest concern, personally, at the moment, is if it's already been decided and it's happening, my biggest concern is about what is done with the end product. That's my most immediate concern, on which I have an answer, because we're put it on the seabed is not a solution. So it's just landfill in the sea. So, but that is why, you know, I think, yeah, it may not be Tom himself. I've met Tom Jewett. He's a very, very knowledgeable, very amenable person. You know, I have a great deal of time for him. But he may say he's not the person to do with this. You need to speak with so and so from ABP's this, that, or the other section. But if we put the initial query into him, that an appropriate person from ABP comes to speak to us on this, then I think that's the way to go. And we try to get some information. You know, we've all read what we've read about nationally what is intended to happen here. It would be nice to get some information from them on what is intended to happen locally with this experiment and with whatever follows. And if we could invite him to come and speak to us, and again, if they don't want to speak in public session, then that could be a standalone meeting.
Yeah, fine. Yeah. I'll just say a couple of things on it. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, you're hidden.
No, it's all right. I guess in many ways, I just wanted to echo that I think we need far more information. I don't think any of us really understand what it is that's been started. And I guess my very limited understanding of physics is that carbon that's compressed becomes coal, which under the seabed on its own is quite stable until we start burning it. But, you know, so I think someone that really understands the science behind it, coming to a meeting to explain and hopefully assure us. But, you know, I do think the people at Lowestoft deserve that. It's, you know, like it's been pointed out, it sort of has appeared quite quietly. And those questions ought to be raised and reassurances, if they're there, ought to be given. And innovation only comes about by experimentation. In some ways, it potentially could be a really exciting thing for the town if it brings in jobs. But, you know, we ought to get it from the horse's mouth and understand what is being proposed.
Yeah.
Be my view.
Yeah. Yeah, my issues with it there's no urgency to reduce emissions if the carbon reduction technologies are considered the solution. So, you know, if you rely upon these things, then people think, oh, well, it's okay to carry on as normal. But the Science-Based Targets Initiative require a 90% reduction of emissions and carbon removal strategies for the remaining 10%, which can't be mitigated in any other way. So certain industries, like, for example, the concrete industry, it's quite difficult to, you know, dispose of the carbon from concrete. So things like this could be used in that area. So I think there is a place for it, but it can't be used to replace things like planting trees, for example, which, you know, is the natural way to do it. So yeah, we've already voted on this, haven't we? So have we not? Okay, I'll second. And a vote, please. Thanks. Right, where are we? Water butts. Thanks, Rachel. 103.2, receive an update on the purchase and installation of water butts.
I don't know if I mean, I've been raising this for a while
Okay.
because apparently we have them, but they haven't been installed. Oh, are they?
Well, we've got the ones we're going to purchase. I spoke to Johnny this week, actually. He's looking to install them now. So it's looking really good. The committee wanted them installed in Kensington Gardens and Sparrow's Nest as initial places to trial them. And they said it's down to us how many we want to order for each site. And we had a maximum budget, so we're within that one at this stage. We're within the maximum budget. So looking at Kensington first, they found several locations, predominantly around the Boating Lake Pavilion, because then you've got a concrete base, which you do need for them. One of the issues we had was how we're going to keep these secured so no member of the public can come by and just unleash 3 months worth of rainwater. So in-house, they're going to construct a kind of enclosure for them that will be locked up. And then obviously if the friends group then need to use them, they can give them the keys so that they can use it when they're doing their gardening on Thursdays. So what we found is, I can't remember the measurements, but they're quite large ones. We found a set of 3 that you can buy all together. So they'll go into Kensington Gardens. They're due to look at Sparrow's Nest in the beginning of the new year to decide how many they'll get for that one and where they'll go as well. And in terms of how we're going to keep on top of cleaning them and maintaining them, it will just be a standard, no hose pipes to be used, only empty into watering cans. We'll have our Legionella, the company that we go to for Legionella checks, we'll put that onto the routine for that. And then the grounds maintenance team said they should be able to at least annually dismantle them, do a thorough clean of them. And there's loads of cleaning supplies you can get just to keep the water itself in good condition. No chlorine, no, that's all fine. And we think, I was talking to the grounds maintenance team about it, they said between them and the friends group, they think that this water is going to be used so regularly, there's not really going to be any issues really with stagnation, so that's all fine. So yeah, they're going to look to get them ordered this week, I hope, but they've got the order ready for it. And hopefully in the new year, we'll have Kensington Gardens sorted, and then we'll have Sparrow's Nest being reviewed for their order.
Great, thank you.
Andy.
Yes, Echo, thank you. When we made the original proposal after we'd had some initial advice from Reese, the health and safety consultant, on managing the Legionella risk, I had a feeling that when we selected those 2 trials, that the maximum budget we agreed might have been based at 4 at each location or up to 4 at each location. Is that right? But presumably those minutes can be dug out. I can't remember now whether it was climate or parks that we had that discussion in, but I'm sure that the maximum budget was premised on up to 4 butts at each location. But if I remember rightly as well, was there something that it would probably have been Johnny and Paul back then, had come up with about some kind of apparatus to connect them in each location?
Yeah, there's you're right. Sorry, there's a way, isn't there? There's a kind of hose that
I vaguely remember them.
links them.
Yeah. So when we looked on them online, we looked at the kit that it came with, and there was a kind of connectivity hose that you put between them, and that's why when we initially looking, it was only at like single sets, and then Johnny had to look and said, well, you've got one here that's for 3 altogether, and it has the connectivity pipe to go between them, so that all looks really good as well.
Good.
So is there all? Sorry. So there is a maximum budget in place, isn't there? Is there also a delegation to just go ahead and implement?
Yeah. So it was maximum budget, delegation to officers for how many go in each site, where they go in each site, and yeah, that's all
Excellent.
underway.
So if when you look at Sparrow's Nest, if for any reason that budget's going to be challenged on putting the number in there that ground maintenance team feel need to be in there, could it come back to whatever is the soonest appropriate meeting, whether that be aid, climate or parks?
104, to consider avenues of community engagement and relevant actions. 104.1, to receive an update on the decision to clean an alleyway in Harbour Ward. So this is our plastic-free communities initiative. Wendy?
Yes, we were going to try and do it in December.
Yes.
I don't think that's going to happen, realistically. Does anybody else?
Might be some more stuff to clean up after.
Yes, I wanted to
Exactly.
avoid the
Christmas
Christmas
trees.
clean-up, but mind you, people have started the Christmas chuck out already, so we'll leave East Suffolk to do the worst. So we were going to do a leaflet, weren't we? Around the houses that. Sorry?
Which road were we doing? We were doing.
Well, initially we were thinking of the alleyway between Queen's Road and Cambridge Road. That alleyway is actually looking a lot cleaner. I don't know. I think it's partly to do with the fact that there's the 2 houses that are being built on Melbourne Road. They frequently put their van over the end of the alleyway, so it's kind of obstructing, and it wants fly tippers. But anyway, we could have a go at the Queen's Road alleyway. That one there is usually there's enough to get stuck into. So should we go for realistically? Should we think February?
Yeah, I think February would be realistic.
Would that be better than January, Taylor?
Definitely.
Right.
I spoke to our officers about it. They did confirm our insurance would cover us where we were thinking of going. So that's all fine. There's no obstacles there. They just had a series of just considerations so that we can get it as prepared as we need to, of like how much litter picking equipment we need, how many people we're expecting to attend. A volunteer form would need to be filled in. If anyone's participating who's under the age of 18, they need a chaperone with them. Obviously, there's the usual then, like risk assessment would need to be done. That's quite, normal standard procedure. And then in terms of the end of it, we'd also need to consider who's collecting the litter. I believe when you spoke to East Suffolk Council officers, they'd be able to collect it. We just need to let them know where from. Obviously, PPE would need to be arranged as well. And if we want to continue with the leaflet drop, just a kind of radius idea of what houses exactly we want that sent to. Yeah.
Okay, Andy.
Yeah, well, Taylor just came in on my point. So whenever it's scheduled for, I'm happy to join in. If someone can fit me out with equipment and PPE, I can probably stretch to a pair of heavy gloves, but I got not much else. So if that's all in it, but if someone can help me out with that, but I'm happy to put in a shift.
Yeah, as far as I know, East Suffolk will provide the PPE and the pickers and the bags. And they also mentioned they'd pick up green waste as well. So not only the litter, they'll pick up any sort of weeds and things that we pick as well. So yeah. So Taylor, will you be able to arrange that with East Suffolk?
It can't, whenever we do it, we can't do it on a Tuesday. I think I've said before, a Monday, Tuesday, or a Wednesday, because Monday is get your bin out day, Tuesday is bin collection, Wednesday is shall I take my bin in or not? Which leaves
Okay.
Thursday, Friday or weekend. What do you reckon? Saturday
Well,
morning? A
Yeah, I
Saturday?
suppose if it's a weekend, then more locals will be probably be
Yeah.
able to get involved, won't they?
Oh, yes, they'll be flocking
That
to it.
would be preferable to me than a Sunday, but I could do it with it.
No, Saturday's better. No, we don't Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, Saturday.
A Saturday. February, January,
February.
February,
Early February.
A Saturday in February. yeah.
Saturday. So, sorry, my understanding was that once we'd got the logistics, so do we need, we need to choose a date, don't we? Don't we actually need to say, right, we're going to do it on Saturday, the something of February?
Well, I suppose so, yeah, because
If
we
we're
need to
going to
let
do a
them know.
leaflet,
Yeah.
because I think we asked staff to, or maybe Michael can design us a little leaflet that we can put around the doors.
Who have you been dealing with at East Suffolk? Is it Sophie?
So,
So
Kate.
Okay,
Yeah,
they're both in the same team. aren't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, yeah.
So I guess if you come up with a suggested date, if you went to them before the leaflet goes out, and just said we're thinking of doing it on this date, can you support it on that date?
Yeah.
With PPA equipment and collecting, whatever we pick up, arranging the collection.
Yeah.
Because it's then we really need to give the nod, isn't it?
What's the first Saturday in February, anybody? What is it?
First.
First. Right. Should we
Are we
start?
going for that date?
Let's do the 1st of Feb.
Okay.
No, that's Taylor's looking. 8th?
I'm just like, I'm not as always shorter than you think it's going to be. The 8th, I think, as like the latest date in terms of wanting to capture early February. I think that should
Yeah.
be fine.
All right, well, let's say the 8th then.
The 8th of Feb, yeah.
Okay.
That's a Saturday, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Saturday,
Yeah.
Okay, so shall I contact them or will you be able to contact them?
Yes, I'll liaise with our officers here. I'll liaise with both Kate and Sophie to get that all arranged, and hopefully beginning of January I'll be able to get everything confirmed and we'll know exactly what we're doing.
Because they may need to know how much equipment they need to provide. So we're going to have some idea of how many people are going to attend, aren't we? So we need to get the leaflet out first, really, to find out whether we get any. Oh, we're not going to know. We're not asking people to respond. We're just letting them know we're doing it.
Well, we're not going to say we're not going to discourage them. If people want to come and join in, great.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
We want them to keep their bins in. If they want to come and help, marvellous.
Okay.
Could it be put on the social media page as well? As well as
That area, we could put it on this town council social media
that's what I was
page. Yes,
thinking.
yes.
Just to widen the
Yeah.
awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's sorted.
Yeah, I mean, if we wanted a vote on that one, just say it's resolved that it's going to happen on Saturday, the 8th of February.
Okay. Andy?
So proposed.
All right.
If it's been proposed, I vote.
All right. Well, I'll second and we'll vote. Thanks. Rachel, are you voting?
I'm sorry, my hand did go up.
Oh, it did.
I'm gonna have to scoot in about 5
All right. Well, we're nearly done anyway. 106 to review 2.5 of the investment policy and provide feedback to the Finance and Governance Committee.
It's been very useful to listen in.
Okay.
for coming,
Thank you, Trevor. Okay, Andy.
So the investment policy was reviewed by F&G separately. So all the financial aspects of this document have been reviewed, but in section 2, which is investment objectives, 2.5 specifically states that the council has declared a climate emergency, health emergency, and has declared Lowestoft an earth protected town, and will consider these matters when making investment decisions insofar as this is reasonably practicable. The council recognises that there are limitations on the extent to which it can make environmental, social and governance comparisons and assessments, not least owing to 1, multiple and diverse sustainability frameworks and standards including on sustainability disclosure. 2, the lack of common definition of sustainable activities. And 3, greenwashing, i.e. difficulty establishing the depth of claimed green credentials. So what I proposed when we did this, that in regard of this specific aspect, and it may be that now I've explained a bit more about what the environmental objective is of this policy, that people might want to think about it between now and the next meeting and roll it over. But it was for climate to make recommendations to full council on that specific area of the investment policy. I'm making sure that how we make sure that as far as we possibly can, the investment policy reflects our climate, health and earth protector towns, how we build them into essentially what is strategic decision making around finance and investment.
Okay. Well, the only one comment I will make on that is we've made a climate and ecological emergency declaration. So you just mentioned climate there.
Climate emergency in 2019. I think we
declared
the ecological emergency
later.
at the same time we declared the earth protector.
Yeah. So
we
that
can get that paragraph amended.
Yeah. Okay.
But in terms of like how we feed into that process to ensure that the aims of the climate and ecological emergency, the health emergency, and the earth protector town are taken into account in our financial and investment decision making. Investment particularly, because that's the purpose of this policy. Is that something that people want to have a think about and then have a full discussion at the next meeting? But that was the purpose of having this on the agenda, because there was a quite specific climate and ecological clause in the state. We felt that it should be climate and ecological emergency that feeds in on how we achieve that.
Yeah. Can that section, that 2.5, can that just be distributed among us, just so we can have a look at the wording of that?
Yeah.
Thanks. Wendy?
I mean, it's very interesting, but the big one is going to be that I think we need to definitely look at is pensions.
Yeah.
And that is going to be most of our money that we have to invest, I imagine, will be invested in our pension pot. So where that money is invested.
In our staff pension.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the Suffolk local government fund. So potentially we could start by getting some information on their investment policy, which should be published. So that would be a start. But the other things that we spoke at, although we've tended to, so the other things that we've spoken about in the past, we've tended to deal with them in isolation, but rather than as part of this policy. But we've talked about ethical things like utilities, utility companies that we use and things like that, and how, not just what they're doing in terms of energy consumption, but their ethical treatment of their own customers who are also local people, that kind of thing.
And another thing is to look at is who the council banks with.
We've done that.
So we've done
banking, we've done utilities.
So we bank with Unity Trust Bank,
Yeah.
and ethical banking was a big part of that discussion and selection.
Okay.
We don't have currently any money tied up in long-term investments, but we have a policy which enables us to make them if we wish. But at the moment, our money is like we have a deposit, and we have two accounts, like a deposit and a savings, but both ready access. But we certainly have a policy that enables us to put some of our reserves into longer term investments if we wish. We just haven't done that at the moment, in part because of the volatility of the markets over the past few years, and making those selections, and I think it was felt that to minimise the risk, it was best not to, given the way the market's been going in the last few years. But we certainly have the authority to do so and a policy that enables us to do so. And were we to do so, would like to think that, you know, there's an explicit clause in there that says that the climate and ecological and health emergency and earth protected town should be taken into account in that kind of decision making.
Yeah, good. Okay. So yeah, if that wording of that could be distributed, then we can have a look at it before the next meeting. Yeah. Okay. 107, date of the next meeting, Monday, 20th of January, 2025 at 3:30. Items for the next agenda. Does anyone have anything? Well, I have one thing. If this could go on the next agenda, Taylor, to consider the climate implications of building demolition in the light of current and projected demolitions taking place in Lowestoft. This did come up for planning, and I think it really needs to be discussed here. Okay, and there's nothing to go into confidential, is there? No. So that's Andy.
Yeah, at some point, but we're probably not going to have the information for the 20th of January, so it probably won't be the next meeting, but it ties in very much to that. The idea that we are going to get government housing targets that will essentially override local planning authorities and very top down. I don't know, it's probably ironically enough going to be the primary planning authority that would be our main source of information, but it would be nice to get some more information on what that is likely to mean in practical terms from both a planning perspective and a climate perspective.
Wendy.
Well, the big one is going to be the garden village, isn't it? And what kind of buildings they're going to be proposed to put up there and what sort of infrastructure and blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah.
how sustainable they will be, yeah.
But also what is happening to our neighbourhood plan? Is it going to emerge forever?
We
Or is
amended
it?
it. didn't
We went back on it, didn't we? Because we read the draft and there was a resolution on the agenda about whether we wanted to go out to consultation at that point, and we went back on some things because, like when this first, there were some things that needed factually updating, not because they were wrong when they were drafted, but they've gone out of date in the years since. So we fact checked some of those points, and I think that was meant to be built in. Then I assume, do you know what? Andrew, I can't remember his surname, our neighbourhood planning consultant, was probably going to take a final look over it. But yes, I think it's maybe worth having to receive an update on, if that's possible.
Yep, so from that first meeting on the neighbourhood plan with the subcommittee, all of the, in terms of like grammatical and factual corrections have taken place. That's all fine. I believe when I last spoke to Michael last week about it, most of everything else that's been queried, we've had people come back to us on. I think we're just waiting a few more things because we had a few items where we said, can we check with our consultant? Can we check with the appropriate person about what this means and what that might entail? So when I spoke to Michael last week, it's very much the intention that in the new year we'll then get the subcommittee together for its second meeting, receive all of that information and go from there.
Will that really, at that point, if everyone's happy with it,
we're hoping that means it's then going on
consultation?
Yeah, so once the decision is made then that they're happy with it, it moves to the next stage of consultation where it's handed over to East Suffolk as the primary planning authority to undertake the next consultation, which then brings you one step closer, as I understand it, to the neighbourhood plan being finalised. I think it's one of the last few steps we have to do.
The final step, do we have to have a referendum on adoption?
I believe so, yes, public referendum.
So
what Sarah was saying was whether that would be standalone or whether that would be tied in with the May elections, is that right?
So how long is, I mean, this has been going on for years.
Well, Sarah was hopeful that it would be adopted no later than the May elections if the primary authority decided to put the referendum in with that. She was hoping it would be standalone, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And that it would be sooner. But it's just you have to go through this convoluted thing where you have to have mandatory consultations by law, and I think the end result there has to be a public referendum to adopt it, which I believe is paid for by the primary authority.
Yeah.
Which is why she thought it may be left to the May elections, because if the primary authority happen to cover the cost, they can keep their costs down by combining it with another electoral process that's taking place on that day.
Okay, right. Anything else for next time? No? Okay.